Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Another Cove Shorts brought to you by your host, Keith Young. Some people have been calling me Recovery Keith lately. I might keep it. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. John Hiltz is my guest today. He's our principal sales representative for Cove Data Protection based out of Ottawa, Canada. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the future of Microsoft 365 data protection. It's a pretty big topic. There was an interesting and impressive announcement from our friends at Microsoft recently in June, or as part of me, July, actually, come to think of it. John, I'm going to ask you a few questions about it. I want to get your take on this.
Sure.
Microsoft is going to be offering their own backup solution for their M365 product. Traditionally, they had not provided that, and that was
Mhm.
something that this channel was looking after. We're seeing a lot of conversation about it just out of the hop. Like, for this session, everyone who's joining us today, we are just having a conversation. By the way, we're not going to solve any problems or provide solutions. We're simply just talking about what's happening, man. Like, is it gonna? What, you talk to a lot of customers more than I do. What's happening? What are you hearing?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense from Microsoft's standpoint, right? You go back a couple of years, they start offering Office 365.
Yeah,
What they see on the back end of it is all these backup and cloud service vendors now offering Office 365 backup, right? It only makes sense from their standpoint that they want to get in on the opportunity to generate more revenue for themselves. They
sure.
already offer the solution itself. Why not offer the protection for it as well?
Yeah, that's convenient, but somebody might say, didn't you just tell me to send it to a third party not that long ago and that was best practice? What do you think's changed?
To be honest with you, I don't know what's changed. I mean, you go back 4 or 5 years ago when this first launched, right? We had our marketing team develop a material to pass out to partners called the shared responsibility that details exactly that Microsoft tells you their terms and conditions. We recommend that you use a third party platform to back this up.
Sure.
From my side of things, operating in the backup and DR space, our goal is to mitigate damage, and keeping everything in one place raises a lot of eyebrows. It raises a lot of potential concerns because if anything happens to that instance, even if it's being kept in a backup instance as well, it's still gone. We
Yeah.
protect devices, we back up devices to multiple places to make sure we have redundancy in place. The same theory should apply to Office 365 data.
Yeah, I suppose any sort of SaaS data needs to follow so a lot of the same rules we would do with our
Mhm.
devices. That makes sense. I'm certainly on board with that. You know, but if we asked a lot of people who may be unfamiliar with sort of the environments and the challenges that it faced, someone might say, well, isn't it in Microsoft already? And isn't it okay there? I
Mhm.
mean, we hear that quite a bit I mean, do I even need it? I mean, everyone's spending a lot of effort for this. Is it that
And I
important?
think that's the difficult part, right? Is it's not our partners who are going to have any lack of understanding. It's the end users. And more often than not, Microsoft is going to pass that information to the entire market, not just the IT providers. And so we need to arm our partners with that conversation and just make them aware that they should be making their end customers aware, keeping the data in one place. Yes, it already is in Microsoft, but Microsoft, like any company, regardless of size, is
Sure.
not bulletproof. Let's keep it in multiple places. That way, if there is a disaster for whatever reason, we're not reliant on one single source of data.
Yeah, and I've already got the sense myself that it's not a challenge, but more of a compliment to
Mhm.
what's already happening. We just sort of have to figure out everybody's place in at the table, I suppose, and where do we fit in? It might be a good fit for some organizations to put it all in one basket, and that probably is okay too. I guess for those who are looking for relief in the sense that, I need this service, but I also want my data to live somewhere else. That
Mhm.
sounds like those are the individuals who might be continuing with a third party conversation. Do you see any challenges, specific to that discussion that might be difficult, or how to help individuals make a good decision?
Personally, no. I mean, we offer Office 365 backup platform today, right? As do a number of other platforms. The whole purpose of any of these tools is to simplify the management of that data, providing a nice, clean UI, an easy, understandable restore process. Now, with that said, I think that what we can do to enable the channel better is to continue to provide up to date, resource intensive information so our partners can pass it on to their end users to better understand what a true disaster recovery scenario and plan looks like.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, sometimes it feels like device and SaaS are separated because they live in different places, but truthfully, I don't want to treat them the same, give them equal attention. That data is equally as important. And just because it's hosted somewhere doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% safe. And we probably should be taking steps to maintain that safely somewhere else. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
not with Cove data protection, find a suitable solution that's external to your organization where you have access to it should something happen. I mean, these things don't happen, right? Disasters don't happen. These are things we just prepare for. So,
Mm-hmm. I
um,
mean, we're already seeing the blend, right, of device and SaaS. More and more partners are having their end users put things directly into an Azure instance. You still want to back up those Azure VMs and put them into another instance. Why wouldn't you do the same thing for your Office 365 data?
right. And again, a great point. I mean, Microsoft's done a really good job, in my opinion, of putting together a fairly comprehensive package of tools that you can do all within their environment. And that sounds pretty good to me. As a consumer, I might enjoy that, but this type of education, as it were, this informative sessions to kind of ideally to speak to someone like yourself, I suppose, to understand that there might be another option that might be more
Mm-hmm.
affordable even and might make more sense to the business should a disaster present itself. Um, do in those conversations, what are some of those risks that we should be thinking about? Uh, from an attack standpoint. I mean, obviously, that's probably the biggest thing we're trying to think about here. Something bad
Mm-hmm.
happens, we need to recover from it. Does anything come to mind for you regarding like a situation where having an offsite uh, copy of your data, in particular with SaaS, would be advantageous? I'm just trying to
Well,
understand like, the if it's all in one basket versus something outside of the basket, but
mhm.
what situation really leans to that?
Well, we always think of disaster striking, right, as the most pertinent thing. What happens if the data center hosting my data happens to go down? That's really not the case. How often
Right.
does disaster actually strike? When we're
Right.
talking about disaster, the more common disaster is ransomware attack. And
Right.
single point of failure being a data center, single point of failure can also mean if someone gets access to my MF8 console, my Azure data today, my Office 365 data today, and it's all right there, they have the potential at least to delete everything, crypto my data out, and now I'm stuck paying a ransom. Otherwise, I don't have a business anymore. At least by having it in a third party tool, console, or cloud, that risk is mitigated because there's a copy elsewhere that I can restore back from. We keep hearing about in the news, right? Over and over. Each year it happens. Municipalities, large city organizations where they're paying tens of millions of ransoms or tens of million dollars in ransoms rather because they
Yep.
didn't have a proper backup solution in place. That blows my mind. These are the organizations where they should have something in place already, and our partners can continue to market themselves in a manner to mitigate these damages by having any solution in place today.
So it feels as though that might be an open door for would-be attackers in the event
Mhm.
of, malicious activity or something that, hey, I'm going to go pick this company and I'm going to try to break into their email and take over. It sounds like, that sounds like a common story we hear. I don't have any
Mhm.
specific examples, but it feels like something we hear. And um, having that data away from the core data in a different environment entirely, in a different encryption model, sitting somewhere else in the event of that failure, disaster, crypto, whatever that might be, just feels like the right thing to do. I don't think there's a right answer for this one. I think it's really about where your level of comfort is, understanding your risk and understanding your organizations. If you're a managed service provider, like many of the people we speak to, or if you're just an end business learning about this for the first time today, I think understanding where the risks reside is really more important. And then you can make an educated decision that way. And I think that's what you do every day, John, isn't it? I mean, you provide this type of conversation to help our customers learn a little bit about the products and where they fit and how to solve some of the problems they're facing today.
Mhm.
What else do you think we should add to this? Is there anything sort of as we wrap up our time today for this session? Is there anything else we should be thinking about as a segue into success?
Well, and this applies for all vendors. It doesn't just apply to Enable. We try to do our best job of having an unbiased opinion on things, but of course, our internal biases lay in. We work for Enable, right? The very best thing that anyone in the channel can do for our partners, and then of course the end users as well, is make sure that people make informed decisions and know all of the facts transparently before signing on the dotted line, setting up an environment, and backing it up into whether it be our cloud or anybody else's cloud. So they know when they make that decision, they've checked all the boxes, they're making it for the right reasons.
I think that's a great call. So I think we'll end on that note because it feels like a really strong place to end. Coming up, we're going to be talking a little bit more about cybersecurity, cyber insurance, disaster recovery planning. Microsoft 365 protection is something that we need to continually be educating ourselves on. We need to be implementing wherever possible. It is a single point of entry for organizations to worry about when it comes to any sort of malicious attack. Emails are, continually or routinely being accessed for those purposes. And we want to help our partner network and our ecosystem. Everybody wins when we're all protecting our data in a very similar and thoughtful manner. John, thank you so much for being our guest today to share the conversation of Microsoft 365 data protection, kind of what's happening, the future, who knows? We're writing it as we speak. One of our best things we do at Cove Data Protection is build airplanes in the air, and we hope that you've enjoyed the ride. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us for the last few minutes just to learn a little bit about Cove Data Protection, Microsoft 365, and the future of data protection within.